Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to give about 1 minute and then we'll get started. Welcome to National Bike Month. As we continue our webinar series focused on transportation and commuting presented by Transaction Associates, today's discussion will be a panel of everyday bike peers. My name is Sophia Gallimore, and I'm a program manager at Transaction Associates, and I will be the facilitator of today's roundtable discussion. Also joining and assisting with today's session are my colleagues Kelly Masachi and Julie Quinn. Transaction Associates is a full-service transportation consulting company that operates regional TMAs, or Transportation Management Associations, and work with individual clients to manage their on-site transportation programs. We also have a division that manages and operates shuttle services. Today, our guest panelists will share with you their experiences with biking to work, biking for fitness, or just biking for fun. At the end of each panel topic, you will have an opportunity to comment or ask questions. So please use the question function on the right sidebar of your screen. After the panel, you will also see an e-commuter demo on how to join our September Bicycle Challenge. This session will be recorded, and at the end, you will receive a follow-up email with a link to the recording and a short survey for you to complete. So let's get started and introduce our panelists today. Nancy Doherty works at Transaction as a transportation planner and analyst, supporting the National Rural Transit Assistance Program. Nancy enjoys recreational bicycling in the Metro West and Merrimack Valley areas of Massachusetts. She is finally the proud owner of a little blue hybrid bicycle that doesn't make her look like a certain character in The Wizard of Oz. That's cute. Courtney Goldberg, she realized her love for biking when she signed up for her first triathlon 5 years ago. Way to go, Courtney. Having been a long distance runner for many years, bicycling gave Courtney a different perspective, mainly that you can explore more and travel faster. Since that triathlon, Courtney has remained a casual biker, having 2 kids. In that time, it has kept her off of the racing circuit, but biking remains a favorite form of exercise for her. Courtney loves that it's so freeing, and there's no better way to work your hamstrings and glutes than to ride up a big hill on your bike. Rob Tazinari, he's a retiree and a former vice president of Transaction Associates. He has always enjoyed bicycling, whether it's a mountain biking or road biking. Rob was fortunate to live 5.5 miles from work, and he biked to work 2 to 3 times per week between April and November each year. The road to and from work woke him up in the morning and got rid of the daily work stress in the evening. Rob continues to ride his road bike as a retiree. He now lives in Hampton, New Hampshire, and takes advantage of the bike roads and roads by the ocean a couple of times a week. And Rob continues to ride his road bike as a retiree. He now lives in Hampton, New Hampshire, and he takes advantage of bike roads and roads by the ocean a couple of times a week, completing around 22 miles per week. Paul Fisher is an planning and inventory senior manager at Staples. He's an avid recreational road and gravel cyclist. He enjoys gravel adventures, long days on the road, and multi-day cycling tours. Paul has done the 7-day Tour de Cure, which is an ADA benefit, twice, riding 550 miles over multi-day cycling tours. Riding 550 miles over 7 days around Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Maine, and Vermont. He is very lucky to have a nice social group of friends of different abilities to plan rides with. He always liked to try riding in new locations and exploring New England back roads, especially on less gravel roads that usually have great views and beautiful landscapes. Thomas Michel is a professor of medicine and biochemistry at Harvard Medical School and a senior physician in cardiovascular medicine at Brigham and Women's Hospital. He is also co-director of the Leader Human Biology and Translational Medicine Program and the Leadership Council at Harvard MIT MD PhD program. Thomas considers himself a fair weather bike commuter. He commutes approximately 9 miles each direction from Watertown to Harvard Medical School and back, but only if it's not too hot or too cold. Thank you, panelists, for joining us today. So now that we've met our panelists, Julie, I think you have a poll question for the audience.
I do. If everyone who's in the audience can check all that apply. What was the reason you started biking? To get to work, for fun, enjoy fresh air, exercise, to save money? Check all that apply. We'll leave this open for about 20 more seconds. Get all the answers in there. What was the reason you started biking? Everyone, couple more seconds. Get all your answers in, and then we'll see why everybody started to bike. Okay, there we go. So to get to work, 25% of you. For fun, 50%. Enjoy fresh air, 25%. And for exercise, 88%. And to save money, 25%. So that's good. That's great. A lot of exercise out there and a lot of other reasons to bike.
Yes,
Excellent.
that is great. That is very great. So now that we've gotten our first poll question out to our audience, and we know, they like to bike for enjoyment, health reasons, let's ask our panelists the same question. What was the reason you started biking? So let's start with Nancy.
The short answer is I started biking when I was probably 5 years old, and my father bought me a bicycle, and I've been biking ever since. So that's I'm a recreational bicyclist. I don't commute. I'm too far from to work to bicycle, unfortunately. But after a long day at work, it's nice to go home, ride around the neighborhood, maybe ride into town, get an ice cream. Sorry, Mike or Thomas, and at home, I really enjoy it, and I've been doing it my entire life.
Right. Okay. How about you, Courtney?
Yeah. So I mean, I had a bike as a kid, but I would say that I didn't really get serious about it until, like Sophia said in the intro, when I signed up for a triathlon. And I signed up for a triathlon because I was really kind of sick of running. Like I still run and I love it. And running will always be my passion. But at the time, I was just kind of sick of the whole, train for a race, run the race. I needed a change of scenery. And at the time, I was at my 2-year-old niece's birthday party, and I was talking to my sister-in-law's friend who was a triathlete, and she just made it sound like so much fun. So I was like, you know what? I want to do this. So we're driving home that day, and I said to my husband, I'm like, I want a bike. And he's like, okay. So I did it. I think I signed up for the bike. I mean, I signed up for the triathlon like before I even had the bike. And I was like using a friend's bike, and yeah, so it was kind of impulsive, but I'm glad I did it.
Good, good. And how about you, Rob?
Well, similar to Nancy, I started when I was pretty young, and it was for delivering newspapers, showing my age. But for commuting, it was really more, I worked in Boston and I was living in Melrose, and the parking lot at the Orange Line was always packed. So I decided to bike to the Orange Line. And then when I started working for a transaction, my bike was from Melrose to Woburn. And it was really just to get exercise, to do something that promotes alternatives, since that was part of our job at transaction. And then just to save mileage on my car.
That's a good one. And you, Paul?
I felt like re-engaging into something that I had enjoyed as a kid. It seemed like a good fit for what I like to do. It's not hard on the body compared to running. I used to be a runner too. And as I got older, I kind of felt the running in my joints, my knees a little bit more and more. I like the sense of adventure that you get from doing long rides, the sense of accomplishment once you complete them. And it definitely gets you fit and strong and gives you a lot of endurance. So that's basically why.
Okay. And Thomas.
Well, I think like everyone here, I rode a bike as a kid. That was fun. Kind of rediscovered this as an activity when I moved from Lincoln, Mass, about 15 miles west of Boston, to Watertown about 3 years ago, and found myself living within a few hundred yards of the Charles River bike path. And tentatively at first, and then with increasing enthusiasm and more equipment, I became an almost daily bike commuter again. In the months of April through November, strict rules, air temperature above 28, and the relative humidity not too high. And enjoy it 3 to 4 days a week during that season. It's been really, I think, a rediscovery of both fitness, reducing one's carbon footprint. I listen to birds, and so along the river, I have the pleasure, certainly during migration season, of sometimes hearing a couple of dozen species on my way in, less so obviously kind of season.
Right.
So it's a wonderful bookend to a long day, and it's been something that's really been transformative in terms of my
Right.
health.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Julie, I think we have another poll for our audience now.
We do, but I just want to say that we do have one other comment that somebody who's in the audience said that Molly's Henderson was born and raised in the Netherlands, and the only option was to ride a bike. You learn to ride a bike like you learn to walk or breathe, for that matter. So that's how we have some audience people who, the reason why they learned to bike. So
That's good.
pretty interesting. So,
Yes.
so yes, let's get into our second poll. What was your biggest hurdle getting started? Oh, Kel? 1 second, we'll bring that up. Okay, we'll ask the panelists and then we'll come back and ask the audience. How's that? So let's ask the panelists. Go ahead, Sophie, and then we'll come back and ask the audience.
Okay, no problem. So panelists, what was your biggest hurdle to getting started and how did you overcome it? Let's start with Nancy this time.
Getting past training wheels was a huge thing. I don't really remember what the hurdle was. Probably trying to get my parents to buy me a 3-speed bike, because I had the bike that you had to pedal backwards to brake. So I remember that was a big challenge, but I can't really think of anything from that.
Okay, all right. Rob?
Well, just for commuting purposes, it was really actually doing it, to wake up in the morning or think about it at night and prepare so that when I did wake up in the morning that I would actually bike to work. You would struggle until you got on your bike and then everything was great. The other thing had to do with traffic. At first, it was kind of intimidating to bike in the traffic, but then I just started biking as if I was part of the traffic flow, and it was a lot easier in reducing the nervousness and all that. But also realizing that you could be a target, but you just have to be really careful, be in the flow, respect other traffic, and so that's it.
Right. Well, they certainly have made definitely improvements on, having specific bike lanes, which is excellent, and it shows how far we've progressed so far with biking. Courtney, how about you?
I'm sorry, Sophie, I just have one other thing. Where I was living, there were no bike lanes. And so what I would do is drive the route that I would be taking to see what was on the side of the road and see which roads to take that were the safest. So if
Okay.
you are thinking about biking, it's probably a good idea to check out the route before you go on your bike.
That's
Sorry.
a really good idea.
That's a really good idea, which brings me to the point of, we have eCommuter, and that's what we have eCommuter there for. You log it, go into ecommuter.org, and it will, lay out the best bike routes for you to take. Okay? Courtney.
I would say probably having the right equipment. When I signed up for that triathlon, I didn't have a bike yet. I borrowed a friend's bike. Her bike was probably a little too small for me. So it was just kind of getting used to, getting the right fit, making sure you have the shoes, the helmet, whatever, the padded bike shorts. So I would definitely recommend that you go to a bike shop and talk to people there. They're very knowledgeable. They can tell you, how to get started and have recommendations. And I know obviously in the COVID era, it's a lot more difficult to do that, but I know a lot of the bike shops are doing appointments. So if you just give them a call, and then they can talk to you on the phone if you wanted to order it online. But I definitely would recommend talking to somebody before just ordering anything. There's so many people who have such a wealth of knowledge, or even if you have some friends, like I had some friends that I talked to a lot who recommended various different things. I still bike in my spin shoes, so you don't need to go like super fancy. But
Okay. Thank you, Courtney. How about you, Thomas?
I think the biggest challenge is a little bit like what Rob was saying, is trying to find the best route in. Training wheels were so long ago for me, Nancy, I don't recall. The challenge of ensuring that I could get there expeditiously and safely, and to know that I'd rather take a little bit longer and have a less well-traveled route, it was key. I was guided in that by a colleague who actually works here as well, who rides in every day from me. She guided me, say, take the longer route that has less traffic, and even then spent some time scouting it out before I became comfortable. And now I know every overhanging tree, I know every bump.
Personally.
And personally, having experienced them in many different conditions. But identifying and then getting completely and totally comfortable with the route, I think, is very important. And that's something that I feel very comfortable with now. And I almost never ride my bike except to commute. As much as I enjoy it, I get enough of it, if you will, in the process of going to and from work. I no longer do that much in the way of recreational biking. I just prefer to walk.
Thank you. And Paul?
I think for me, the biggest hurdle was finding enough time and, getting the good equipment to enjoy cycling. And then, like everyone else has said, finding good courses and people to ride with. I think joining cycling groups and clubs has been really good for me, and in terms of meeting people, learning some new courses, trying some new areas to ride in so you don't get bored doing the same route over and over again. And signing up with some organized events also helps in that, to kind of expand your universe of riding options.
Right. Okay. All right. Great. Thank you. So, Julie, do we have the poll ready for our audience?
Yes. So what is/was your biggest hurdle for getting started? Please check all that apply. Having a bike, route planning, physical stamina, safety concerns, or limited facilities at your end destination, like no showers or bike racks, etc. Go ahead and check all that apply. Looks like we also have some comments from the audience that we'll do after the poll.
Great.
So we'll leave this open for about 30 seconds, let everyone get their votes in. Got about 5 more seconds if anyone has any last minute votes. Okay. So it looks like our biggest hurdles are safety concerns with 75%, and then 50% being limited facilities at our end destination, and then route planning, which, as Sophia mentioned, eCommuter can help us with that, and then physical stamina.
Okay. All right, so Kelly, you said we had some comments.
We do. We have one from Barbara. I always think it's good to have high visibility gear, flashing rear light under your seat, flashing headlight, fluorescent jacket, those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And then I have another one talking about what can a person do when they find no safe route to ride to work? We've tried to escalate it with the towns and they're not seeing any results. So has anyone had any experience with sort of infrastructure?
I think there needs to be local leadership that, I'm sorry. I think there needs to be local leadership that can advocate along with the citizens. In Watertown, we're fortunate to have a very active bike and pedestrians committee that actually is part of the town infrastructure. And I know that similar things happen, perhaps even to a higher level in Cambridge and to a lesser extent also in Brookline. And I think absent that, I think it's very hard to get traction with civic leaders.
Right, right.
And showing, I would add, showing up at hearings, you know, if your town is, whether it's the Massachusetts Department of Transportation or your local DPW is having a public hearing on an infrastructure project, to show up and advocate for bicycle accommodations.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we do here at Transaction is, you know, we go out in the community and we advocate for, you know, cycling, biking, safety, things like that as well. And we will continue to advocate that as well.
The other thing, there are regional planning associations, and they usually do a regional plan. And because they get state and federal funding, and as far as I know, I've been kind of out of the loop for a year, but typically they have to have a bike aspect of the regional transportation plan. So you may want to find out, you know, which regional planning organization oversees the roadways that you're looking at. The other thing, there are different organizations that advocate for bike lanes or whatever. One I'm familiar with is the Rail to Trail organization. So you may just give them a call or Google it and see if there are other organizations that can advocate on your behalf that have maybe a little bit more influence on how things get developed.
Great. Thank you, Rob. And so because we're coming to the end of our panel discussion, I just wanted to get some final thoughts from the panelists. If there was one thing you wish you knew when you first started biking, what would it be? Nancy?
If you're really truly if you started the way I did, just kind of riding your bike around my neighborhood. I know this sounds unbelievable, but I did not know there was such a thing as bike racks. You could put a bike on the back of your car and it just opened a whole new world, and they're cheap and they're easy to use. So that would be one thing. And then the second thing is I kind of learned later in life that those little nasty looking seats that most of you probably all ride on are actually more comfortable than the big cushy one that I used to ride on. They're really designed for bicycling, and that was a surprise.
Thank you, Nancy. Courtney?
I would say probably that it's okay to fall. You know, and to, you know, I remember I was riding, this was when I was riding my friend's bike, and I was clipped into the pedals and I started to fall and didn't figure out how to unclip to catch myself. So I just fell. And I think I was like in the middle of the fens and I was so embarrassed, and I was like, oh my gosh, people saw me and I'm all scraped up and nobody cares, right? I mean, it's like I was fine. So I think it's kind of, you know, maybe it's a little bit, you know, bruising to your ego a little, but I mean, you know, it's just kind of like it's okay to fall, and maybe even, you know, like when you're, you know, when you go kayaking and they tell you to like practice, you know, flipping over and getting out of the skirt, maybe even kind of try to simulate a fall. I mean, don't like try to, you know, scrape up your knees or anything, but just see how you would do it, you know. Can you unclip your foot quickly, or if you're not comfortable with that, maybe just don't ride in clip-in shoes. and just kind of get more comfortable with everything that biking might throw at you.
Great, thank you, Courtney. And Rob?
Well, I think that one thing was the wind chill factor when you're biking, even though it may be, let's say, 40 degrees while you're biking, it's probably about, I don't know, 35 degrees. And what I found when I would bike pretty early in the spring and pretty late into the fall, that to wear something on your head, below your helmet, otherwise you get like a brain freeze. And I did that once and then got something to protect my head from being cold.
Rob, I remember you saying something about a certain type of gloves that you wear too that work really well for bicycling in the winter.
Yes, Thomas is putting up. I agree. The gloves are, well, there's a company called, I think it's Icebreaker, and they make pretty good stuff that's light for biking. I mean, I don't think they make things for biking, but I found them to be pretty good. And as Thomas had just put up, it's really, if you could have your finger, there are gloves specifically for biking where you're able to have your fingers so that they're close together, I guess, to keep you warm. However, I found that this Icebreaker, I wore gloves underneath a pair of like leather gloves, but not leather gloves that, like the nice brown leather gloves. They were just made out of leather, and it just prevented the wind from affecting your hands as well.
Okay, that's great. So like a mitten type biker glove is
Well, they're all different designs. There's mitten types of gloves, and then there are some with fingers, and then there are some where you split your fingers. It really, if you're seeing Thomas, there's a glove like that where it splits them out.
Okay, all right, good. Thank you, Rob. Paul?
How important safety is. I think when you first start biking, you don't realize that aspect as much. But especially nowadays with everyone being on their cell phones, and it's so challenging. I even went to the extent of buying a Garmin radar light. And that technology keeps getting better and better. It helps knowing what cars are coming up from behind and alerting you in your bike computer. But safety is tough in cycling. We don't have good infrastructure in the U.S. and it's tricky. Even if you're in suburbs and empty roads, it's still challenging because cars then drive even faster. So I think that part definitely resonates a lot now.
I recently got a rear view mirror attached to my handlebar, and it's just great to be able to see what's behind me, just like you would in a car. It's maybe not as high tech as what you were explaining, Paul, but it makes me feel a lot more comfortable when I'm riding on the road.
Yeah, those work too.
Good, good. And Thomas?
I'm not going to quite answer your question because there's a point that I want to make. I see we have about 20 people out there who are listening, and that is cover your face and not your ears. And I think that's incredibly important. In the COVID era, to see people churning by without anything resembling a face covering, without anything in their hands, or even some people there that think that they're aliens and that they breathe through their necks, but covering your face is important. And I'm going to demonstrate it with a buff. That's all it takes. You can ride like this. And this is what Tony Fauci does he on his nightly 4-mile walk with his wife. I just read an interview with him. He walks around like this. Someone comes, the 50 feet away, you put it up.
Yeah.
It's part of being a good citizen. It's part of protecting yourself and your fellow citizens. Covering your ears is deeply, deeply dangerous. Auditory clues. As a commuter, this is key, and even I think as a recreational bicyclist, if you want to listen to music, go for a walk, hang out at home. Your ears are as important, and in some cases more important than your eyes in terms of determining what's happening with the traffic. So I think that it's very important for us to recognize that in the COVID era, we need to be respectful of others and their health, to acknowledge that even though in the open air, the risk of transmission is low, when you're at a stop sign or a stoplight and people come along, if you're going from suburbs into the city and the traffic density is higher and the density of pedestrians and fellow cyclists is higher, you show that you respect their health and are cognizant of your role as a citizen by covering your face. And you can ride either with a mask or a face covering. They can be easily allowed when you have no one in sight. You can breathe the air. I know it's confining, but being able to change that when you encounter people within 10 feet or so is a really good idea. I generally do it when I'm 50 feet away, and people generally will respond. My final thing about face covering, and it goes back to this, not as a glove, but as a live long and prosper. This is our old folk meeting. Normally, you know, when you're riding along, you see a cyclist and, you know, they're enjoying it, you're enjoying it, you'll give them a smile. Those cues are missing. And I think that point of connection is important for all of us, particularly in these troubled times. And if I see someone and they're not wearing a mask and they put it up and I recognize that they are aware of their existence in the world, context of other people, I'll give them a live long and prosper. For those of you who haven't done this, you can practice. You can actually practice while you're writing. I know some people find this easier than others, but I think that some form of acknowledgement of our fellow writers and our fellow pedestrians is a good thing to do.
Excellent. Thank you, panelists, for taking the time to share your love, experiences, safety, everything around biking with us today. Julie or Kelly, are there any other questions or comments from the audience?
Nope, we're looking good. The only other thing.
That's it.
Okay.
We want to thank all the panelists as well. It was fabulous.
So, yes, so Kelly, I'm gonna turn it over to you so you can just talk to us about eCommuter and the bike challenge.
Absolutely. So September is National Bike Month, like Sophia mentioned at the beginning of the call. So to celebrate that, we're doing an online bicycle challenge on ecommuter.org. So when you do that, talking about face buffs, Dr. Michelle, we're actually giving away free e-commuter base buffs while supplies last. So if you register to join the challenge, you'll get a free face buff. So I'm going to show you how to do that real quick, and then we'll end the webinar. All right. So once you sign into ecommuter.org, right, you click on the Commute Challenges tab here at the top. Once you do that, you'll then be able to see all of the active challenges that you're eligible for. So we're going to join the eCommuter Bicycle Challenge by clicking Join. And then here we can see details about the challenge. So our challenge has two different prizes. One for the individual with the most biking trips recorded, and then one for the team with the most biking trips recorded. So we're going to go ahead and join this. I can either start typing in my team name, and your team name is where you receive your commuter benefits from. So this might be your employer, your residential complex, a property developer, or your Transportation Management Association, or TMA. So you can start typing that in, or there's a drop-down menu and you can choose from the list. If you don't see your team, or if your team is full, you can always email us as well. So I'm going to go ahead and join that team. And now that I'm joined, I'm going to show you how to record a biking trip. I can record a trip by clicking the log trip button here, or by visiting the commute calendar. Both will get you to the same place, but it's, you know, user preference. So let's say I bike to work today. So if I click on the date, this screen comes up, and I'm going to select a to work trip, like, right, and then I biked, and then I put in the number of miles I biked. So I biked for 8.45 miles, let's say, and then I can hit submit. Oh, sorry about that. Do that again. To work, bicycle, and then we hit submit. And then your biking trip is recorded. I'm gonna have to look into that again. This was working this morning.
Because you're working from home.
I know, right? I know, it says I'm working from home. It was saying bike this morning, so I'll double check on that with our developers. But here nor there. So you can also check your, like I said, I will check with the developers on that. If I click the Commute Challenges tab again, I can see where I stand for those two prizes that we talked about. So where am I in the team, and then where am I as an individual? So qualifying trips, individual. So all throughout the month of September, the more biking trips that you record, the better your chances of winning those two different prizes. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to your commuter services or to email us at info@ecommuter.org.
Okay, so thank you, Kelly. And again, thank our panelists and thank you to everyone that joined us today. My name is Sophia Gallimore. If you have any questions about the transportation services provided by Transaction Associates or how to join our bike challenge, you can reach me at sgallimore@transactionassociates.com. Please watch your email for information about future webinars we will be presenting. Have a great afternoon and don't forget to join the bike challenge and start logging your trips. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.
Bye,
Happy
everybody.
biking.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.